Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host Nathan P. Butler. This time we are circling back to a format I actually didn't think that we would see again, which is PVD, not DVD, but PVD, a personal video disc designed specifically for the Video Now players back in the day. Not great items here. Not very long lasting, as I have recently discovered, but we'll get to that here in just a moment. You may recall that if in 2005 you had gone to either Sam's Club or Walmart and purchased a copy of Revenge of the Sith on DVD, the bonus item you could get was a copy of a DVD called The Story of Star Wars. This is probably the most common version of that people would have gotten. It's the widescreen version of Revenge of the Sith with Story of Star Wars in the packaging from Walmart rather than Sam's. Sam's was that giant thing that we've seen before with all that anti-theft packaging kind of bulk added to it. But Story of Star Wars was actually not originally meant for DVD. It had been produced for the Video Now system for a PVD release. And we saw two different PVD releases that included that content, the story of Anakin Skywalker and the story of Luke Skywalker. But instead of being together back-to-back on a DVD, they were as two separate PVDs in two 3-disc sets. The first of these was from 2004. We saw this one. This is the US release right here for the Video Now. Saw this quite early, I would say. And then inside you've got your 3 discs here, as far as disc design goes. But then there was a reissue in 2005, and that was this. And the big difference was that while the first 2 discs, or what I think of as the first 2 discs, the Story of Anakin and Story of Luke, got new labels but otherwise effectively stayed the same, there was a behind-the-scenes disc with Vader on it in both sets, and they updated that, so the content was different as we went into exhaustive detail on when we looked at these releases here. But this also included a little interactive game built into that disc if you had a Video Now XP as opposed to a Video Now Color FX or some other Video Now system. Lots of different versions of a pretty limited product line out there. But this was that 2005 release. This was 2004. Basically 2 different behind-the-scenes discs, but identical content-wise Anakin and Luke discs in them. Okay? Great. We looked at them in great detail in recent memory. Well, it turns out that the US was not the only market that got these. They are pretty limited. Can't imagine them being very popular in other markets. They certainly weren't super popular here, and yet they did exist elsewhere. And thanks to Matthew Hardesty having a keen eye on eBay, I was able to pick up a copy from Australia. We're actually going to see 2 items from Australia in the 3 little episodes I'm recording all here on the same night. Hence the Marvel t-shirt here. I know, Marvel for once. It's amazing. That's not a Star Wars shirt. This is the release in question. Now, I don't know if there were 2 of these from Australia. Maybe there was this one and an updated one. This one, interestingly, is the content, yes, I've checked, all the content from the 2004 release in the US, but it's released in Australia, at least based on the copyright date, in 2005. Like if you look, you're not going to be able to see this here, but if you look through all the text in here on the US version, it has a 2004 copyright date, and that's all that's on there. Then you look at the other one, and it's got a 2005 copyright date, and so on. This one has a 2004 copyright date, basically when it starts the legalese, as in when that stuff was made. But then you actually get underneath all of that, and it notes 2005 copyright date as the newest copyright date for it, for basically when this made its way into Australia, got the updated, very slightly updated cover for that market, and so on. So we're going to take a look here at this one. I'll pop it in for old time's sake, let you see a little bit about the video quality, but my players are not lasting very long here. So, this is that release. Looks a lot like the 2004 release in the US. We've got Video Now, the player name, the product line basically running on the side here. We have an ages 6+ and a product number for use exclusively with the Video Now personal video player, 3-disc pack, Star Wars, 3 personal video discs, PVDs, then discs 1, 2, and 3 identifying as the story of Luke Skywalker, the story of Anakin Skywalker, and behind the scenes, which is not really much in the way of behind the scenes stuff, mostly just, kind of bits and pieces all mashed together, which we've talked about extensively in the past. But then your big difference here is that whereas the US version has this all the way at the bottom and says volume SW1. It's got the color thing there. This one does not have the color notation, even though it is in color. And it has that obligatory rating stuff down here on the bottom for Australia's PG, parental guidance recommended for persons under 15 years, medium level violence. I would also note no VN content symbol on the Australian version. So it's not an exact one-to-one carryover, but pretty close. But it's the differences that make it interesting, right? So 3-disc pack, Star Wars, then you got your discs 1, 2, 3, the names again, the rating symbol, but not explanation there. On the back, very similar as far as it goes here. The color part for Video Now Color is gone, so it just says Video Now. Slight realignment of the text and stuff here, and then of course you get down at the bottom, you get the rating, you get the different legalese, and contains X amount of discs, etc. They're of X size. Hasbro, Tiger Electronics, legalese, the Video Now points, Star Wars hyperspace symbol for those who remember that. Again, legalese, copyright date, UPC, all that expected stuff. Inside, the discs are very similar. We'll do a comparison of at least one. We'll do the comparison here with Anakin. Anakin's disc. This is the US version of it. This is the Australian version of it. All right, so you notice the biggest difference there is that color part that is gone, and the fact that this one here just says Star Wars. You'll notice that is also true of the covers. This just says Star Wars. The American one says the story of Star Wars. They're both Star Wars Volume 1 or Volume S1, as it's called, but slightly different branding on the way that these are presented here. So let's look at the Australian one a little more specifically. So it says 1 full-length episode, Video Now, but not color, picture of Anakin, Star Wars, but not story of Star Wars, PG, the story of Anakin Skywalker, and then there's all your legalese and whatnot down there on the bottom. And these are a little bit smaller than a standard DVD, but bigger than, say, a mini DVD. If you own a Saga on Home Video 2nd Edition Volume 1, check out the last page of the introduction. You can see a size comparison of various discs that are covered, including PVD. So that one has the story of Anakin Skywalker. Then there's the Luke version, essentially just different name and picture of Luke there, but otherwise designed the same. And then the behind-the-scenes one that does not have any kind of game on it. I was kind of hoping when I picked this up that because it said 2005 as the copyright date, and in the US, the 2005 updated version was the one with the game on it, that maybe what we would find is like the 2005 content from the US in a release instead from Australia. Kind of like the DVD release we saw out of Turkey that seemed to be kind of a mix and mash of different types for the original trilogy way back in the day. But not so much. It's just the 2004 stuff happens to be coming out there in 2005. And because it's always fun to see what these would look like in a player, and to find out if these will actually play in an American player, let's do a test. Spoiler alert, I already know the answer here, because I tested them last night. Unfortunately, I can't test this in my good old Video Now Color. A Video Now Color FX, the one that saw us through the original viewing of the content of the two from the US, because for whatever reason, maybe just the passage of time, it's not really working anymore. The screen turns on, but it's super dark no matter what you do with the little contrast slider up here. It's basically has given up the ghost. Great for visuals to show you guys what a player would look like, but completely useless now for actually playing, unfortunately. Go in peace to your rest, or whatever. However, the Video Now XP, the one with a couple of screwed up buttons that I used to show you guys how the game worked on the 2005 US discs, it still works. But it is starting to give up the ghost. You can sort of tell with the screen that it is starting to have some issues. But let's pop it in here. So again, we are going to flip the little slider, open it up, put our disc inside and snap it in, close it up, pull up the screen. There is no on or off button. You just hit the play button. It starts to spin. You can hear it whirring, probably. And we're at the Video Now. story of Luke. And I want to show you a specific scene because I always think it's a good example of like the visual quality. Here we go.
The Empire was building a new space station, more powerful than the first Death Star.
Yeah.
And Han was caught firmly in the clutches of Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah. So, you know, it works well enough. You know, very crappy frame rate, very crappy resolution. Not the greatest screen. You can see where certain, you know, chunks of the screen are not in as great a shape anymore. But it certainly looks a lot better on this and has a bigger screen, just by a little bit, than on this one. But sad to see that one give up the ghost. But you notice there, that was the Australian copy I plugged in there. So even though when you see these sometimes on eBay, at least when I saw it on eBay, it noticed this as PAL. Apparently that makes no difference because all the PAL related stuff doesn't really apply to the frame rate and the resolution used for this thing anyway. So it's a PAL region, sure, but you can use Australian copies of it in American players. My guess is there's probably really no such thing as discs for particular markets or players for particular markets with video now. My guess would be they're all uniform. It's just that they're labeled differently depending on the legal requirements of a region, such as, of course, those ratings on here and the ratings on here. Why call it Star Wars instead of the story of Star Wars? That I don't know. Why say Video Now and one's Video Now color? Also, couldn't tell you. I do not have a black and white, I think, first version of Video Now to test it on, but my guess would be it would only be working on the color one either way. So, yeah, just another oddball item from another region to join a bunch of other oddball items we have here for that PVD format. Fun to collect, but not a whole lot to them. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.